So we became one of Uber's 15 first partners, did a lot of press around it. It helped us raise our Series A round, and then we were off and running.
Do you want to impact the world and still turn a profit? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Growth Everywhere. This is the show where you'll find real conversations with real entrepreneurs. They'll share everything from their biggest struggle to the exact strategies they use on a daily basis. So if you're ready for a value-packed interview, listen on. Here's your host, Eric Sue.
Before we jump into today's interview, if you guys could leave a review and a rating and also subscribe as well, that would be a huge help to the podcast. So if you actually enjoy the content and you'd like to hear more of it, please support us by leaving us a review and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thanks so much. Okay, everybody, today we have Mike Dudas, who is the co-founder and CRO of Button, which is a company that helps retailers realize the power of mobile by allowing seamless, interconnected services to complementary and relevant products. And I'm going to let him explain what that means in just a second. But Mike, how's it going?
Going really well. Thanks for having me on today, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So yeah, first and foremost, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your story and how you got to where you are?
I've been working in the technology industry for about 10 years now. Feels like shorter. It just goes so fast, as you know. Any technology career goes very, very fast. And I started in media and ad technology at a startup based in New York City, where I live today. And all the technology jobs I've had have been based in New York City. Spent 2 years at a startup, 3.5 years at Google, and then worked at Venmo Braintree for a couple of years before we started Button in 2014. And along that 10-year journey, shifted actually from a focus on media and ad technology to a focus on commerce and payments. And so it's been really exciting. And that transition happened at Google. Google's an amazing company, which allows folks to kind of dabble in areas and build new careers in areas where they're not experts. So worked on the launch of Google Wallet, which led to my opportunity at Venmo Braintree. So each of the roles I've had have been partner development, business development, and sales. And I absolutely love sales. I thought I'd be an engineer in college and quickly realized that selling was what I love to do. And we started Button about 3.5 years ago, and we have a fantastic team, folks from Google, Venmo, Rakuten, Facebook, with a mix of commerce, payments, advertising, and pure e-commerce experience. And what we do at Button is, we've found, and I think you've probably found, anybody who's listening has found, it's really hard to buy stuff on mobile. You have to tap 150 times to enter in new credit card information on a mobile website and all your personal information. And the best place make a transaction is inside of mobile apps. The retailers and merchants themselves, from Uber to OpenTable to Booking.com to Amazon to Walmart, all find that customers who use apps are far more valuable than those who use the mobile websites only. So we work with those retailers and those merchants to acquire new mobile app users from a number of different publisher sources. And the big problem that many of these merchants have found today is that there's this duopoly that you've heard a lot about, Facebook and Google. They're really scaled, but they're also really expensive. And it's hard to find cost-effective, efficient, and scaled channels outside of Google and Facebook on mobile to acquire new users and to drive transactions. So we work with these retailers and with a great group of publishers in the performance marketing channel to drive transactions on mobile.
Got it. Okay, great. And what numbers can you share around the business today?
So we are growing really fast. I mean, just like any growth stage startup, we're we're more than 50 people, and that's up from 35 people just 6 months ago. We've raised $34 million behind a really strong revenue story. Our revenue is up on a monthly basis. This month it's 10x what it was this time last year, and we're driving in the tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So it's really exciting, and we expect to double that again, in the next 4 to 5 months. So, we're in a really exciting position where we really do control our own fate. And if we keep doing things really well and delivering value for merchants and publishers, we really feel the sky's the limit.
Got it. And just to back up a second, I mean, where did the impetus for this idea come from? I mean, what's the story behind that?
So we looked at where the pain points were, both for consumers and for builders, of mobile commerce businesses, and looked at our skill set and said, hey, where can we help out? So the founding team in 2014 felt that, pure sort of payments was solved. I worked at Braintree. And there are great payment solutions from Apple Pay to Android Pay to Braintree to Stripe. Not a real big problem there for mobile commerce businesses. On the advertising front, we felt like in the sort of pure advertising market, a lot of great solutions in terms of Google and Facebook. But we looked at this massive channel that exists on desktop, and it's the affiliate channel, right? And it drives for many merchants, something like 15 to 20% of all transactions. And that channel was absolutely non-existent on mobile for a host of reasons. Primarily the challenge was tracking transactions into the app. And it just wasn't a priority. Most of the legacy affiliate companies are 15 years old, not really technology companies. So we said, hey, there's a huge problem here. It's a channel that works on desktop. It's more complex on mobile. And we have a great skill set. Sexy business, but it's a really exciting, healthy one where you get to work with some of the best companies in the world who are delivering services that consumers love. So we got really good about it. And I think each just said, hey, this is where we want to be. We want to be in marketing technology and sort of bridge the gap between, advertising and commerce.
What's an example case study of how this might work in real life? Because I've seen a couple of examples on your site, but it might be helpful for people to visualize how this thing might work for them.
Absolutely. So in the past, you would go, for example, to a publisher, mobile website or app, such as Foursquare, let's say. Another example might be, Condé Nast Traveler, where you're looking at reviews of hotels. But let's just stick with Foursquare right now. In 3 years ago, when you went to Foursquare and you landed on a restaurant page for your favorite restaurant, you would get information, you would get links to their website, perhaps their phone number. And you get ratings and reviews. So a great information site, monetized through ads that weren't always perfectly relevant to what you were looking for. So Foursquare said, hey, we'd love to make these pages more valuable, more actionable. And if somebody's looking at a restaurant page, for example, they likely want to make a reservation at this restaurant or get food delivery or get a ride there. So we put what we call buttons, the name of the company, onto these pages in the app. And what we found is incredible engagement with those buttons. We're seeing tons of folks make restaurant reservations directly from Foursquare pages. So, I'm at Upland, a great restaurant in New York. I'm researching it. I tap the OpenTable button, and it deep links me straight through to OpenTable's Upland reservation page, where I can choose my time, and I'm off and running, and my reservation is booked. And it helps to turn Foursquare into a place where I can not only get information, but I can take action. And, it's not an ad, it's a actual product integration into that publisher page that provides value for everyone. And because of that, the user loves it, the publisher loves it, and the merchant, OpenTable in this case, loves it. And because of that, we've been getting referrals. Our customers are selling on behalf of us, and it's a really great place to be.
Got it. So if I'm understanding this correctly, I mean, let's go back to the Foursquare example. Basically, the way it was before is you use Foursquare and then you have to open up another app if you want to book, let's say a reservation or something, right? But the way you guys have it now, where it's basically seamless, and then they can connect. Let's say the restaurant and Foursquare, it's integrated together, and then basically Foursquare might get a commission if the reservation actually goes through. Is that similar, or am I on the right track?
Yeah, the business model here, you nailed it. So if it's Uber, if it's OpenTable, if it's Grubhub Seamless, effectively those merchants will pay for the lead driven by the publisher.
Got it.
And they'll pay either a flat fee or a percentage of the transaction, depending on their business model. In addition, if the user doesn't have the app installed previously, so they're actually discovering this business for the first time or discovering it on mobile, the merchants will pay a installation fee, so like a CPI. And what's exciting is they're paying for an install in context. They know that that user is primed to purchase. So it really does drive high value installs. And we do this, not only in those what we would call like a super contextual environment. We also work with a lot of really large-scaled shopping and loyalty apps and websites. So folks like Ibotta, and we're working with Retail Me Not in the UK, and we're actually opening up these loyalty and shopping apps that used to drive in-store purchase and help people love to discover a deal and be able to redeem it and purchase. As you'd have to take that coupon into the store to redeem it, and now you can buy it right on your device. So there's a lot of applications for this. One other application is the travel industry. So we've started working with a number of the largest meta-search sites. So we work with Skyscanner. If you've ever done a mobile travel search to book a flight or to book a hotel, it's really hard. You typically do the search, and then when you tap the link, it will send you to like a non-optimized website. Like in many cases, like United, it'll be a desktop website. It's almost impossible to purchase, right? You'll be there for 24 hours. And what we're working with these meta search engines to do is to turn those links when I tap into links that will send me into the app if I have it installed, or encourage me to download the app and install it. And what we've seen is that this can increase the conversion rate by 3 to 4x. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
Wow, that's huge. So Mike, tell us about what's the most effective thing that's been working for you in terms of customer acquisition today. Referrals obviously working as well, but what else is kind of working really well?
So as you mentioned, referrals is one of our 2 or 3 best channels of acquisition. And I think, look, that's critical for any high growth company, particularly a new one. And so, we're really excited about that. And I think it speaks to the quality of the product. In addition to that, we have a really experienced enterprise sales team. So, we sell into very distinct verticals on the publisher side, as I mentioned earlier. Those are, shopping and loyalty apps and websites, content apps and websites, and travel apps and websites. And we have an experienced seller, 10 to 15 years of experience, deep industry relationships in each of those roles. And we have a bunch of data on how our products perform in those verticals. So we go to the folks who have traditionally been in charge of monetization on the publisher side. And then on the merchant side, we go to folks who have historically controlled desktop affiliate budgets, and we say, look, this is a new product for mobile that's very similar to what you've used in the past in many ways. So the model is the same, the economic model is the same, but we're going to bring you the most valuable users you've ever had when we speak to the merchants, because we're going to drive them in an app where they're 3 to 4 times more valuable than your web customer. And on the publisher side, we say, look, it's a brand new source of revenue that's not in conflict with your existing revenue streams, advertising and subscription. So, it's hard for folks to turn that down. The biggest question we get, as any new technology gets, you kind of have to answer 3 questions when you're selling. It's why should I do this? Why should I do this with you? And why should I do this now? Why should I do this is one that people tend to understand on both sides of our marketplace, both publishers and merchants. Why should I do this with you? Folks understand, because literally there is no other end-to-end mobile affiliate solution on earth that works. So that's exciting for us. Why should you do this now is the most challenging question that we have to answer. And that's why we need really experienced salespeople, because, most companies are resource constrained on the mobile side. And so we need to make a strong case as to how we can drive, incremental revenue, incremental customer acquisition, and, prioritize versus many other initiatives that these companies are considering. So, direct sales is a big channel. And then we do have a good marketing organization. So our one-to-many marketing organization that creates, white papers about the affiliate industry, about these specific verticals. We speak at conferences and things of that nature. But again, we found customer referrals and direct one-to-one selling are our most successful channels. Lastly, I'll say we've been very, very fortunate in that we've raised money from individuals who are very, very well connected and deeply respected in the industries that we're going after. And that's definitely a strategy that I would recommend, to any entrepreneur, which is secure money, secure advisory roles from very well respected people who believe in your business very early on, because those folks can be an amazing and incredible source of new business leads and reinforcement that their peers should respect and believe that the product you're selling is what you say it is.
Great. One question, not a lot of people here talk about kind of enterprise or direct sales here. So how do you find the right people so you got the right people, the right experience, and the right vertical too, right? So how do you go about hiring these people? How do you find them?
It is really, really challenging. I won't mince words. So we had been seeking, for example, a head of travel, the right person, entrepreneurial, well-connected, tremendously hard worker, somebody we trusted, and who could be an evangelical seller, because again, travel is a more recent and newer vertical that we're entering. So what actually happened is we ended up hiring an incredible guy, John Fontaine, who was formerly the VP of Business Development at Go Euro. And we hired him. Go Euro is a partner of ours. They're based in Europe. He was working in Berlin, wanted to return to the United States. We courted him for a year, and we're fortunate enough that when he did choose to move back here, he chose to work at Button. So we do a lot of this through our network and developing trust with people over time. Our head of content and loyalty publisher sales comes from Amazon. So we look at the best companies in the world, right? So she had been the top seller for Amazon Associates, which is Amazon's affiliate program. And again, she came through a personal referral. So I would say that you always have to look to your personal networks first. This is true at Google too. I remember some stat when I was at Google, even though it's a huge company, that out of the 2% of employee candidates are referred, but there's something like 40 or 50% of all employees hired. So networks are critical.
Great.
And then, partner recommendations. So we've had a number of folks who we've hired from recommendations of our partners. And it's just so important. When we've not done that, when we've gone out of band, we haven't been as successful. So when we've hired folks that we didn't know directly.
When you say you're courting people, like for example, it took a year for that one. What are you doing exactly? Are you just pinging them on LinkedIn, or like is it something more involved? What does that look like?
It's a more casual engagement, is what I would say. So what you're always kind of putting out the opportunity, like, hey, we'd love to work with you. We'd love you to work with us. Are you serious about it? Can you do this? And oftentimes people will say, look, this is really enticing, but now is not the right time. And so, that happens quite often. And in those cases, you just have to wait and be patient. I wouldn't say, we would continually, ask and request if folks demonstrate that they're not interested. It's not like we're trying to change minds. It's a scenario of finding that right match with an open mind.
Yeah. I find, in most scenarios, the great people are never looking on job boards, right? So they have to be courted through LinkedIn, and then has to become conversation, and maybe even meet them in person a couple of times too, to just establish a relationship. And it seems like that's what you guys are doing. And with most of your people, is it just kind of you guys are finding them on your own? It's referrals. Are you guys using any recruiters at all?
So we're not using any external recruiters. We've been exceptionally fortunate in that we hired and had a wonderful, wonderful woman, Stephanie Mardell, join our company very early on. So she was one of the first 15 folks to join Button. And so we've had she joined us from Square, the best people person I've ever worked with. And so she's now in charge of, our recruiting and all of our people operations. And so she'll do a good amount of outreach. And we found many fantastic people that way. On the sales side, I think we've been a little more specific in terms of personal referral, but for other opportunities within the organization, we have done outreach, and we do direct outreach. We do very little with recruiters. And it's frankly because we're fortunate enough to have a great internal recruiting and people team. And so we do an insane amount of outreach, like we're hiring for a head of marketing right now, and our personal networks are not as deep there. So we are doing, 50 emails a day, right? And and then kind of seeing who's interested and responsive. And we do this with real diligence, right? We'll have our target list of companies that we believe are best in the world in the type of marketing that we do. And then we go after, a highly specialized group of folks, but we have to do it at great volume. And it takes up a lot of time. And I know you hear this from a lot of entrepreneurs, but recruiting it's probably more than a day a week in total for me in terms of, my focus and time spent.
That's great. Well, tell us about one big struggle you faced while growing Button.
So very early on in the company, we had a really kind of a moment of moment of truth where the initial product that we had raised our seed round on and put the team together with simply wasn't working in the marketplace. So Button raised on this thesis of app connections and partnerships between publishers and commerce companies, which is what our product does still to this day. But the premise originally was to have the merchants actually so folks like Uber and OpenTable and Airbnb, who are our customers, to put in an SDK that was kind of like a loyalty SDK so that their users would earn points on purchases and on certain behavior. And then those points could be redeemed, your Uber points could be redeemed at OpenTable, right? Or something of that nature, or be redeemed at Airbnb. So what you would call like coalition loyalty, kind of like what Amex Plenty is trying to do. And what we found is that retention and retention via loyalty just simply was not anywhere near the top priority for the companies we were targeting, who were in sort of hyper growth mode. So after 4 to 5 months of aggressive selling, we were only working with 2 companies on this product, and we just knew this wasn't going to scale into a VC backed business and create the type of growth that we wanted. So this was late Q3 of 2014, after we'd started the company in early 2014, and I won't call it a pivot fully, but a change in the product, such that what happened right around this time is that Uber opened up their API. And they were one of the first to do this really publicly. The timing was fortunate. I always like to say, to be a successful startup, you have to be good, but you also have to be really lucky. And right when we were finding, a lack of fit with our initial business model and product model, Uber opened up their API and said, hey, developers across the world, put Uber, an Uber button into your app. Or into your mobile website. And we knew, they announced 12 initial partners, but we knew they couldn't scale that out themselves to hundreds and hundreds of partners that they wanted to work with. And we also knew that other companies were contemplating this, through the relationships that we had. And we said, look, there's going to be an amazing marketplace here for helping these companies that are opening up their APIs, who are getting into this sort of performance-based marketing model, to work with a company like Button, and there needs to be a company dedicated specifically to this. So we became one of Uber's 15 first partners, did a lot of press around it. It helped us raise our Series A round, and then we were off and running. And we are where we are today, I think, because of that fortunate change in the model and a little stroke of luck in terms of Uber opening up their API at that specific time. But there were a couple months there where it was scary.
Sometimes you just need a little luck, right?
Exactly.
Great. Let's switch gears here. Just a couple more questions from my end. What's one new tool that you've added in the last year that has created a lot of value for you? So example would be Evernote, for example.
Yeah, so Slack is one that I'm sure you hear a lot. I am a super hyper communicator. So, I communicate through any channel available to me. And I over-index, and I love to be in constant contact with my direct team members, with my teammates, with my peers, but also with customers. So, we've created, internal Slack channels for a number of the projects we work on, a number of the different divisions of the company. And then obviously you can have one-to-one conversations. And then we've actually opened up Slack communication with our partners. So we have partner-specific channels for real-time communication. We've put really good boxes around, when you will send something to the whole company, when you'll send something to specific groups and to specific people. But it's really, really helped in terms of, not having everything go to email. Slack isn't something that you necessarily need to answer immediately, whereas often email feels very urgent. And then it allows for much more seamless communication, particularly as we're integrating or trying to solve a particular problem or opportunity with a customer. So, Slack for us at Button has led, and for me personally, has led to incredible productivity gains. And I think you just need to set up boundaries and make sure that it's used right. It doesn't work for everybody, and not everybody at the company, engages in it and uses it, to the degree that I do. But for me, it's been just an incredibly powerful tool.
Got it. Okay. What's one must-read book you'd recommend to everyone?
So I would say one of my favorite business books ever, and it's getting close to being replaced. So I'll give you two, but I thought PayPal Wars was just a tremendous book on about a group of entrepreneurs, and it's more of almost like a novel read than it is a business rules and management book. But you're reading about how this incredible business with some of the most impactful people in technology today, like Peter Thiel, like Elon Musk, Keith Rabois, Reid Hoffman, so many others, were all working together and kind of battling this behemoth, eBay, and creating sort of a trust-based new payment economy. So really an incredible book about that era. And then, Chaos Monkeys was a fun one that I read recently about kind of M&A and growing a business in Silicon Valley over the last 5 years. And then lastly, I'd say Shoe Dog, just an incredible book. I wouldn't be surprised if other folks have recommended it. So I'd say PayPal Wars is my favorite from 10, 15 years ago. And Shoe Dog, the story of Phil Knight founding Nike, is my favorite recent business book. Just a tremendous must read for everyone.
Got it. Yeah, great book for sure. Actually, both of those are really good. Okay. And last question. I mean, this has been great, Mike. What's the best way for people to find you online?
Yeah. So I am as I mentioned earlier, I believe, a a very, very active user of Twitter. So, I use it very strategically in terms of, trying to provide valuable information, things that are interesting to me, insight, often pretty strong opinion. And what it's helped me to do over the past 10 years, I just hit my 10-year anniversary on Twitter, but particularly over the last 3 to 4 years, as my number of followers has grown, is I can communicate with hundreds or thousands of folks at a time about topics that I really care about, and then engage and then learn, because I'm far from the smartest person on the face of this earth. So I often make assertions where the comments that I get back teach me a tremendous amount about a specific issue, a specific market. So it's just a really high leverage way for me to communicate and learn. I'm extremely responsive there. It's the best way to reach me if you don't know me. So it's @MDUDAS is my Twitter handle. So I definitely recommend that folks follow, engage, and chat with me there.
Got it. Great. Mike, thanks so much for doing this.
Eric, thank you. Really appreciate your time. It was great.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Everywhere. If you loved what you heard, be sure to head back to growtheverywhere.com for today's show notes and a ton of additional resources. But before you go, hit the subscribe button to avoid missing out on next week's value-packed interview. Enjoy the rest of your week, and remember to take action and continue growing.